Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host producer. My name is James Pagashnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, you've been to the UK for the last 2 weeks. You have watched a lot more Carson Wentz in person now than you ever have before. Are you ready to get off of this train, or are you ready for this thing to kick back off and go right back to the United States and keep watching more Carson Wentz?
Okay, point of order. Our Irish friends would not love if I just kind of let it slide that you called them part of the UK. So I'm just going to say right now.
Okay, my bad. No offense was intended. Let's just go with the word Europe instead.
As much as Carson Wentz's doppelganger, Prince Harry, would love for that to be the case. I'm not.
It's not often I get to start an episode and just immediately offend an entire island.
Again, the entire island is really complicated here, James, because there's the Republic of Ireland.
And then we have Northern. Yes, well,
that was awesome.
I'd say that we need to get started. We need to restart, but we're on a time crunch because of Arif's laptop and power situation. So we're just going to power right through
again.
This.
Yeah.
Quick question before we start: did you forget your charger at the stadium again this time?
No, Jesus Christ, no. It just stopped working. So that's actually better because now I don't have to stress about it.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to go into some labyrinth, some series of tunnels, deal with a minotaur, in order to get your charger this time. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll ignore the Carson Wentz question then and go straight into this. Welcome to this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys are all doing well. Apologies to both Ireland, Northern Ireland, the UK, and the listeners as well. Before I get into it too deeply, I've noticed the last couple of weeks when I was doing my, I just put out a bonus episode for Patreon, and the sound quality has been a little less than than listeners have gotten used to. My back is bothering me, and as a result, I'm in a different part of the house, which doesn't have the sound deadening stuff on it. So I apologize for the echo that you are hearing in the more recent episodes. That's on me. I will. Hopefully be moving to a more comfortable
really bringing us back to our podcast roots, apologizing for audio quality.
And apologizing for my back. Yeah, it's great. So anyway, just wanted to say that I've noticed it too. I'm working on it. But welcome to this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys are all doing well. The Vikings won. Carson Wentz, in defiance of everything Arif has ever said about him or thought about him, led a comeback against the best defense in the NFL. A fourth quarter, last second comeback.
A game-winning drive. He's got him in both columns. Fourth quarter comeback and game-winning drive.
And because this, and our podcast has long since believed the QB wins are a stat, so this is a QB win for Carson Wentz. So we'll be talking all about that. We'll also be talking a bit about some fun stuff in the mailbag as well. But thank you so much for listening to Norse Code. If you'd like to support us financially, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can go over to patreon.com/NorseCode for $3.50 a month or a little less for the year subscription. You get access to things like the bonus episodes, which I just put one out yesterday. You can check that out, or you can go over to you get Discord stuff, all that, or you can go to paypal.me/NorseCode as well for a one-time donation, or norsecode.threadless.com for any number of wonderful pieces of Norse Code merchandise. All right. Well, now that I've offended a whole bunch of people that are maybe potentially new listeners, let's just get into the episode and review the victory over the Browns. And the thing that is popping up more online than anything else about this game is not about Carson Wentz driving down the field. It's not about the heroic task that the offensive line put together and held together as the last minute drive was was down the field. All of that. Nobody's really talking about that at the moment. Everybody's talking about the field goal that potentially hit the camera wire.
Okay.
and how the NFL missed this.
So I still am not like confident in any particular answer to this question. So I do want to say that off the bat that I still don't know. There's obviously like a very convincing video going around that comes from the broadcast, like angled directly down at the field goal posts, but I'm not like 100% convinced that happened. I'm also not convinced that it certainly didn't happen. Right? It's so bizarre, especially because like that's you should catch that, right? Like that's so silly that you wouldn't catch that. It's funny because like Mike Florio is going on about it, which is like in theory like a slightly more legitimate source than a bunch of us on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of people pushing back on it. I know I got a couple of DMs from people who cover the Browns who were like, "Hey, Arif, can you tell Vikings fans to cool it?" And then they would like send me a video from like NFL Pro, which shows one of or the only Skycam. I don't know if there's multiple Skycams. One of or the only Skycam on the only two cables that operate the Skycam, clearly behind the kicking unit, and that there's like maybe an optical illusion caused by the way the wires kind of work with that camera. Now, I think there's a couple of things here. One, I think there's only one Skycam, but I'm not confident it's only on two wires. So, I don't know if that helps resolve it. Two, the NFL could resolve that. Maybe they don't want to like give credence to conspiracies in general by like immediately answering them. But it would be
there's
cool.
Truth to all rumors, Arif.
Right, there's truth to all rumors, right. But it would be cool if they released footage from the Skycam, right? Because like if the Skycam was unaltered, then it wouldn't go wibbly wobbly during the kick, right? There's got to be a technical term for that. You're an audio engineer. That's pretty close to a video engineer. Did I say it right?
No, the preferred term is kittywampus. So go on.
Yeah. Right. That's why I have to ask you, the expert on that one. So yeah, it didn't go all kittywampus, and that would probably help or something, right? At the very least, a view if there are two Skycams, a view from one Skycam would give us a different angle on whether or not there was like an optical illusion happening here. So I am not willing to like just say it. Like some people are just saying it. I'm not willing to just say that that's definitely what happened, because I think the video evidence, though compelling, is not nearly close enough to be conclusive for me to say it happened. But also, like, that feels like that makes sense, right? Like, it's an international game. The Vikings are playing. I pre-wrote a story about, like, impish fairy creatures just pulling pranks. Like, I don't know. It feels, like, appropriate that all would happen.
Okay, so you're a coward. Got it. I thought you would be willing to stake your entire reputation on this, but apparently...
Dude, I confronted Carson Wentz directly in a presser, like, just a couple days. I'm not a coward.
After he had proved you wrong.
Yeah, that's the only time I confront these players is when they prove, like, Chad Greenway, like, after the pick six, like, on his birthday?
Yeah. He might as well have gone to our section and high-fived you that day.
It was crazy that on his list of to-dos after the game was to snap back at me. That ruled.
Brilliant. All right, so let's talk about the game. And obviously, Carson Wentz was... I wouldn't say he was playing great in the beginning, but he was efficient enough. And more specifically, after he went out with his injury, he seemed to be playing a little bit better. And was able to bring the Vikings down for the game winning drive. And Jordan Addison, who was a scratch for the first quarter, coach's decision,
DNP,
did not play in the first quarter. Ended up making the catch. A little bit of drama over the Jordan Addison thing.
Yeah, so he straight up missed a walkthrough, I guess. We found out after the. Well, actually, we found out during the game via insiders that it was a coach's decision, right? And then we found it was like, we asked after the game, and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to get into the details. And then he immediately tells us what the infraction was, which suggests to me there are other details he's not getting into that are not infraction related, which are like, that's a fascinating fact to me. But like, he just like straight up missed a walkthrough. I don't. That's wild. So one, this guy must know he's on thin ice, right? There's like no, like you are coming off of suspension for your second vehicle related off field violation, and you're still on your rookie contract. Like what are you doing, man? Yeah, so if it is intentional, right? Because there's like a lot of ways that it could be unintentional, but it's still like appropriate to like levy some kind of discipline, just to be like, hey, like I know you didn't intend to miss the meeting, but you didn't create enough time between when you kind of left to go to the meeting and you came to the meeting, so that's unacceptable. We're going to try to instill kind of this culture of being careful about making sure we meet all team appointments, and then like that, right? And straight up just skipping it, right? Because there's two differences here. Now, what's really interesting about this is that, and Sam mentioned this in the Viking Squad show, and I recall seeing this tweet. But there was a tweet before any news had broken about Jordan Addison like missing the first quarter, being suspended for the first quarter, like before the game had started, right? There was this tweet that is basically that just said the Vikings don't know where Jordan Addison is, which like is just some guy on Twitter, right? And like the thing is, you could make a million accounts and just tweet out random stuff like that, and then delete a bunch of tweets when they don't materialize into anything newsworthy or interesting. And so you can just scattershot this, right? Like Sam said on the show, like, why would somebody just kind of say that without it? Was like, well, I'd tell you why, Sam, because people do that. I don't know what to tell you. Like sometimes you just hit gold. So that's possible, right? But there's like a whole kind of spectrum of like blame, responsibility, understandability versus like, what are you doing, man? And it's like, did you intend to go to walk through and something got in your way and they levied a punishment because you just kind of have to? Or did you intentionally skip a walkthrough? Like off of a loss? No, like not that you should do it after you win, but like off of a loss is even crazier now that I think about it. That part didn't even enter my mind until just now. Wild. So yeah, we don't know much about it. Justin Jefferson was asked about it too after which like I know he's a leader, right? But it's like, it does feel weird to be like, hey, there's another guy at your position who effed up. Can you tell us about that? And he's like, yeah, I take it on me to not kind of take him under my wing. And it's like, that's good. I'm glad you said that. But like, you got to know that's not on you, right?
He's got the C on his chest. He knows what's up. Well, let's talk about Carson Wentz. The quarterback play was a little erratic. We had a mailbag question that we're going to have to cut a significant portion of the mailbag this week. Apologies. We did have a mailbag question that asked very matter-of-factly, how tall does Carson Wentz think Justin Jefferson is?
Yeah.
Because some of those balls were high.
Someone mentioned, I don't know if it was like the broadcast, which like I was told while I was in the stadium that like it was Vilma on the broadcast, which we've talked about this before. That guy
was worse than normal.
Yeah, no.
Way worse than normal. He tried, just as a personal aside, he tried to blame a fumble on CJ Ham initially, and he did not have the ball, and I was very upset. You do not.
That's crazy.
Not in this house. No, sir.
Which, by the way, CJ Ham logged the win. Let's go.
It's about time.
But yeah, someone had mentioned whether it was on the broadcast or maybe a radio broadcast or something like that, but that like he was coached to throw over, which I've never heard of in my life, because overthrows are picks. Underthrows, which is what Donovan McNabb was doing a ton in order to kind of cover up for the fact that he had lost control of passes, right? So you just intentionally underthrow to prevent interceptions. Underthrows you do in order to avoid interceptions, unless the overthrows are going out of bounds. But overthrows over the middle of the field? Are you no? What? Anyway, that's like the thing about like the problem with discussing Wentz in this game is that aside from like a few kind of key throws, right? The Jordan Addison touchdown at the end, one of the sideline throws to Justin Jefferson, which is gorgeous, like this contested, but not really contested because it was perfectly placed. A couple of other throws, but for the most part, it was like, yeah, I think most of us would say like before we had kind of really advanced in our discussion of the way NFL quarterback play, progresses, most of us would say it's accurate, right? Because it got to the receiver had an opportunity to catch it. But like the really poor ball placement, right? And so he had like a 73.5% completion rate in this game with a reasonable difficulty on these completions. So that is like completion percentage over expected is positive. It's like plus 9% or something like that, I think. I don't know, but it's positive. But he was not accurate in this game, and especially not to Justin Jefferson. And that obviously doesn't matter all the time. It should. Like you should throw him accurate passes if you've got like the ability. But I guess if you don't, just throw him passes is better than not doing that, right? And man, he reeled in a ton. Like, I don't know. We've seen a bunch of crazy highlight catches this year, and none of Jefferson's catches in this game will go on that list 5 weeks into the season, right? Because we've had like 3 nutso catches from like undrafted and like 4th round pick rookies, and it's just like, I guess this is their year. But these were a lot of really great highlight catches that really did not need to be highlight catches. But to the extent that you want to like credit a quarterback, like you got it to the guy at the right time, at the right spot in the progression, and like you didn't die, which was a real concern actually at one point in this game. But like there's no offensive line. You got to get rid of the ball quickly. And I noticed that like, and this is really strange because I don't remember this being a huge problem. I remember it being kind of like an issue in like 2018 or something like that, after he'd come back from injury. But this didn't seem like a huge problem. But he's like not good throwing on the run. And I don't necessarily mean on bootlegs, which we'll talk about that in a second, but rather like if he is hitching up in the pocket or stepping up into the pocket and throwing during his movement up into the pocket to escape from pressure, that ball will sail like in ways that like mystify me, which is like not, I don't recall that. Maybe it's just on that day, but that's just so strange. But yeah, there was like a lot of passes that went in weird directions. I think one of his better throws was like in the pocket of TJ Hawkinson, and Hawkinson just dropped it. So like sometimes, you can't, you figure it out. I guess he didn't get locked with an official drop, but my eyes saw it. I was close enough to the action. I saw it was a drop. But yeah, I don't know, like good work getting to the guy in your progression and just kind of getting the ball out and just kind of spraying it in that guy's general direction. That worked this time. I'm not like positive that's always going to work, but that you deserve credit for a lot of the stuff that happened in this game.
Some quarterbacks are statues. Kirk Cousins, for example. Some quarterbacks just should be, and that's Carson. He's not as fast as he once was. I maintain he's somehow slower than Cousins now, and it's just truly remarkable to watch him attempt to scramble.
I asked him about that. I was like at the presser. I was like, "So you're old now, right?" So the question was like, "Hey, so early in your career, you relied kind of a lot on I didn't even say rely because that feels like a little pointed. I was like, you used your athleticism a lot. It was like one of the tools that you had. And now that you're older, how do you adjust to the fact that you probably don't have the speed that you had back then? Like, obviously, Myles Garrett's going to chase everyone down regardless, but it doesn't look like, that's a tool that you have in your tool bag. And he's like, are you calling me slow? And I was like, kinda, yeah. What are you going to tell me, man? And he's like, yeah, I guess I'm old.
Wow.
So, but like the point that I made earlier on the Viking Squad show, I think is true here, which is that if you don't have like consistent reps, right? Like, Wentz has been benched, he's moved around, he was a backup for 2-3 technically this year as well. If you don't have consistent reps as you're aging, as you're going through this process, you don't get the constant feedback that improves your instincts, right? That keeps on giving your instincts kind of like an updated heuristic on what it can and can't do. And so if you last played 5 years ago when you were less athletic, like last played to a heavy degree 5 years ago when you were less athletic, you have not updated your like brain body clock or whatever it is to be able to make those decisions that you're not consciously making the decision. You're not going through like an if-then process in your brain. Like, if I step here, is that good? If I scramble, is that, no, you're just doing stuff, right? You have not improved that level of decision-making in a way that's updated for the athleticism information that is now super directly relevant to you. So I think that might play a role here, which is like he has no idea how slow he is now. Certainly he feels himself, right? That spin move, which worked. I should point out the spin move worked. The whatever after that got him clocked, but like the spin move worked. But like, like 2017 pre-injury Wentz, that spin move, he's running over that guy, right? Because he's got like the momentum, the first step, the explosiveness. And this time he just gets stood up, his shoulder gets hurt. So, yeah.
So what's the official word on the shoulder? Obviously he went to the back. He looked like he had something on it.
Yeah, so he exits, goes to the locker room. This is like the last drive of the first half. And so the defense is out there. The rest of the offense is on the sideline. Like, what if the defense gets like, an interception or something, right? So the offense is there. There's like 40 seconds left.
Max Brosmer time, baby.
That's what it would be. And Brosmer was warming up on the sideline. Carson Wentz goes into the stadium, goes through whatever diagnostic procedures they have available to them. They probably don't have an X-ray in there. They may have an MRI in there. I don't know. But someone is diagnosing something is the best I can say. And then before the end of halftime, which halftime's only 12 minutes, he goes out in full uniform. He's got a helmet tucked under his arm. And he starts like testing out his ability to throw. Then he puts on a helmet and he starts throwing. And yeah, so it seemed like it was fine. Obviously left shoulder, so it's not as relevant. Same shoulder, I believe. No, never mind. Because I think that was like the Baker Mayfield injury, right? Where people were like, when he was with the Browns, people were like, me included, by the way, were like giving excuses for why he was playing so poorly. And like he had a shoulder injury, but it wasn't, I don't think it was his throwing shoulder. So, which it could still impact the throwing. And obviously Baker's turned out to be okay. I think Theo Ash got canceled for calling him mid. I love NFL Twitter. It's so stupid. But yeah, you could play with a hurt left shoulder depending on how hurt and like what that means. But it sucks because you torque through it. And so there is like a lot of force being applied to your non-throwing shoulder. But as of today, KOC mentioned that they're going to be looking at it. It's going to be a concern. He wouldn't be able to play, if there was a game tomorrow. I don't think he said those words, but the impression I got was that he wouldn't be able to play if there was a game tomorrow. And so there's some sense that like, if it weren't for a bye week, like he might not be able to last a week of practice. Good news, I guess, is that the other quarterback came back. So yeah, he's practicing. Hooray. So we'll see. But yeah, the shoulder seems to be a concern. I don't know. The idea that Wentz is injury prone is not a particularly revolutionary one, I suppose. So it happened again. Oh no.
So the offensive line, which at one point you had the third string center snapping to the third string quarterback.
That was on a kneel down. That's fine.
It almost wasn't.
It very much almost wasn't.
So the offensive line, which was having some issues, went through a few changes during the game and amazingly so ended up keeping itself together for that final drive.
Yeah, Carson Wentz had a pressure rate under 30%. So like 27.5. And a lot of that again, and I talk about this in my piece, is that Wentz got rid of the ball super quickly. Averaged 2.5 seconds to throw in PFF's final calculation. I think Next Gen has it at 2.48. Obviously, not a huge difference there. And on unpressured dropbacks, which are 73% of them, 2.13 seconds to throw. Lightning fast. So that's a lot of it, right? But yeah, the Vikings were chipping with Hawkinson and Oliver and CJ Ham. And that was helping a lot, but I've seen game plans with chips in them before. That's not they try to make things as easy as possible for this offensive line. But think about all of the bad offensive lines you've seen over the years, whether it's with the Vikings or not, like the Bengals all the time, right? Or the Colts before Quentin Nelson showed up, right? Between Jeff Saturday and Quentin Nelson, there's this whole awful Colt offensive line, or the Chargers midway through any season, right? All of them do try to help those guys. They so try to help those guys a lot, and maybe not all of them have a guy like Josh Oliver, right? But they do try, and it helps. Obviously, all of these things do improve the odds of your quarterback surviving the pocket, but it doesn't do what this is, right? Which is a clean pocket. Again, super quick throws, but a clean pocket on 70% of his dropbacks. That is a huge credit to Blake Brandel, who had never played center before, which is just a wild move that they're like, yeah, we got this guy. He played center in college for a little bit, and he played center in camp for us, and then he also practiced as a center for the last 4 weeks. But I like the other guy that's never done it, actually. The quarterback center exchange, not that important, so that'll figure itself out. That's nuts that they did that, but it worked. Blake Brandel played out of his mind really well. Shouts to Joe Huber, who played well. I mean, he did get ragdolled by Malik Collins on what, but there's only so much where I can just be hey, buck up. No, they all did great work. Yeah, Huber did all right. Brandel played really well. Will Fries played, I think, the best game in a Vikings uniform we've seen, just kind of quietly. That's great. We needed that. Justin Skule, who played at the right tackle because Brian O'Neill is out, moved to left tackle after Christian Darrisaw hit 40 snaps, I want to say. And then that was his pitch count, so he goes in. So Justin Skule switches to left tackle, which I don't know why you didn't have Walter Rouse just come in at left tackle, but I don't feel like I'm in a position to be that stupid because it worked, right? And they would theoretically know better, right? So, okay, just switch Justice Skule to left tackle, Walter Rouse is at right tackle, and one of you's got Myles Garrett, one of you's got either Isaiah McGuire or Alex Wright, and one of you in the center has Malik Collins or Shelby Harris or the rookie Mason, right? Just crazy. So this is what is nuts to me. So I mentioned that the Vikings had this murderer's row pass rushers back right before the Bengals game and Trey Hendrickson. But the Browns are terrifying because over the previous 4 weeks, in terms of pass rush win rate, all of their edge rushers combined to be number 2 in the NFL, just behind Houston, who have Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. That makes sense. So they're number 2 in the NFL in edge rusher win rate. And then their defensive interior guys, the defensive tackles, they're number 2 in the NFL, just behind the New England Patriots, who have Christian Barmore, and then they signed Milton Williams in the offseason. They're number 2 in both categories. That's crazy. You combine them all, I think they're just barely number 1 over Houston. But that is a nuts, a crazy defensive line to go up against. No weaknesses, all gas. The depth is crazy. And this offensive line killed it. I don't know. Individually, you take a look at a lot of these performances and you say, hey, this guy got beat kind of quickly. That's not always going to, not resolve into a problem because they got rid of the ball quickly, so not a huge issue. Or, hey, there's a snap problem here, which there were a couple. Obviously, nothing too catastrophic. I think the most dramatic looking one Either it was snapped too low or Carson dropped the ball. Either way, he picks it up off the ground, and it's a running play, so the timing is now all screwed up. And he hands it to Jordan Mason, and Jordan Mason runs it for like 9 yards or something. Wild. But okay, sure. Yeah, so I thought, like heroic performance. I don't expect to see that kind of stuff again. That was nuts, but also was awesome.
We've had some complaints about TJ Hawkinson recently, and he definitely showed up and was very useful in the game this last Sunday.
Yeah, he showed up, especially in the second half, if I remember everything correctly. But like, yeah, in addition to being like this constant like harassment mechanism for Myles Garrett, which is nice. That's like a good job to have. As long as you're not Mason Rudolph, I think that alone kind of justified a lot of things with, Hawkinson's, kind of poor production this year. But then he also like 38 yards. Okay, now I realize why the Vikings didn't log a drop for Hawkinson. That play was called back by penalty, so that's why. But 38 yards, 6 receptions. I want to say, was it 2 direct first downs, and then he set up some others? Yeah, 2 first downs. As a receiver, pretty workmanlike performance. As a run blocker, he was there. As a chip block and pass block, he was great. Now, there were sometimes he was asked to do one-on-one pass protection because, again, when you've got like a makeshift offensive line, sometimes you just keep 6 or 7 in the pass block. And he wasn't like great at that, but you'd never really expect a guy like that to be. But yeah, no, I thought he did a great job.
And of course, Justin Jefferson feasted for most of the day and did well. It's probably his best game of the season.
I think so. Like, I've mentioned in a couple of pieces, like, Justin Jefferson had like a quiet 80-yard day or a quiet 100-yard day. And sometimes it does feel like that. It's like, you look at the box score, oh my God, he's got like 100 yards. That's cool. Keep that up, man. But he was like so assertive in the framework for this game. Like he dominated and controlled the way that this game would play out. So yeah, I think what was it on the 2 touchdown drives and the field goal drive that wasn't right. I think on each of those drives he had a 20+ yard play. And then on some of those drives, he also had a little bit more, like he had a 12-yard pass interference or something like that, right? Which like that doesn't get counted in his stats. We've mentioned this before. But the past 2 years, I believe Jefferson has been the most not penalized. I don't know as to most fouled receiver by count and by yardage. And when you add that into the receiving yards, it's like not close. Like, yeah, Jamar Chase is very good. I will admit that. But it seems like the total impact that Justin Jefferson has is so much more. And he forces people into these positions where he will get 120 yards in a game. And then there's also like 30 other hidden yards that he's produced just by being so impossible to cover that they just feel like they need to tug on a jersey or something. So, yeah, and we've got a piece coming up from Will Fries that's going to go into that a little bit more. We had Luke Braun's piece last year, I think, about the gravity of Justin Jefferson. But yeah, Jefferson had a really outstanding day in ways that were really impactful for the Vikings, where like sometimes not super impactful, like the 80 yards, because they'll come, and through no fault of his own, but they'll come on drives that they eventually have to punt on or something. And here, he was instrumental in setting up scores for the Vikings, which is really awesome.
And the Vikings run game was also useful as well, other than the whole, fumbling thing.
Yeah, I don't worry about that. That's fine. It's not real.
No, fumble stats aren't real. They are they're clearly something that will work itself out, even though now that's happened twice in 2 weeks.
Don't worry about it. It's not real. So 52 yards for Jordan Mason, 18 yards for Xavier Scott. Scott, I thought, looked awesome. Obviously, like his ball security wasn't the greatest, and his yards per carry wasn't great. But I thought his ability, like my concern with him is his ability to generate yards after contact, and he did a wonderful job of that. Jordan Mason, same deal, really good yards after contact. I think he had Yeah, 52 yards and 37 of those came after contact. So he only technically forced one missed tackle, but he like dragged some people along. Not as dramatically as Quinshon Judkins did for the other team, but he popped a couple of like 10 plus yard. I think he had two, maybe one 10 plus and then two 9-yard gains or something like that. But yeah, I thought Mason played well, even though the box score stuff doesn't look incredible. And then obviously the fumble, you got to not do that. Please stop.
It's becoming an issue. Well, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. And the Vikings were able to, well, they weren't doing much against the run, or it felt like anyway that the focus more for the Browns offense was to try to push the ball by running it.
Yeah, a little bit. In ways that I like. If you had told me the Browns' run game would be successful, I would have assumed that it would have been a repeat of the problems the Vikings have had against the run, both against the Steelers and against the Falcons, kind of just showing up again. And in that case, it was a problem of the Vikings not really meeting their run fits. So like Ivan Pace would kind of wander off into another gap, and then you wouldn't have somebody like a Blake Cashman kind of just figure out that that's what's about to happen and adjust everything on the fly to deal with that, right? Or it's been kind of late to a block, or Eric Wilson over pursuing, which he did also still do that. He does that. He's done that forever, but it's not a huge issue because now when he does it, he like makes up. It works, first of all, a little bit more, but second, he like makes up for it in other ways. So that's super cool. But he's not the backer that like Blake Cashman is, right? So you would think it's like some issue with alignment or assignment, and it's not. In this case, Quinshon Judkins just ran over the Vikings. There's not really a way to like his yards before contact was virtually zero. I think like Next Gen has it at 0. I believe PFF has it at like 0.7 yards before contact per carry. So he had 110 yards and 94 of them after contact. You'll note that that meeting a running back in the backfield is not enough. It's only the first step, and it turns out you got to take him down. And what's really interesting about this is that, like Mason, he didn't actually break that many tackles, but the tackles just didn't take him down for the first couple of yards, and so he'd always churn out more yards. And who was it? I think it was Jared on the podcast earlier. Compared him to like Isaiah Pacheco, and it's like, yeah, he does kind of run angry in a way that's really bothersome to the Vikings. So he did have like that. I think he had 3 breakaway runs. 2 of them were called back for penalty, but that does still leave one that counts, like the 32-yarder. And so he's got a little bit more top end speed than I think was in his scouting report. Which also kind of an issue because the Vikings had really poor tackling angles once he got to the second level, which it didn't happen a ton. He didn't actually get to the second level, free a ton. He was mostly running over people. But, when he did, the Vikings continued to have poor tackling angles. They had him last week against Pittsburgh. They have him this week against the Browns. But a lot of it was he was just churning out these crazy yards. Like Jerome Ford had a couple of like really big moments in the second half. But he only averaged 3.6 yards a carry. He also had a yards before contact that was like really low. And, I always caution people about using yards before contact, but I usually mean that when evaluating an offense, because we don't know if that's a running back stat or an offensive line stat. But here we're just talking about the Vikings run defense overall. So I think it's like a pretty easy one to use to tell us at what point someone contacts a running back in a meaningful way. And it seems like they're doing a pretty good job of getting there. They're just not doing very much once they do. So that seems to be kind of the primary issue, is that they just got run over a bit.
So the rest of the defense, as far as the corners, were out there ready. But I guess this is the rookie quarterback. This is his first start. The Vikings have a nasty history of this sort of situation happening to them where they end up getting surprised. I guess you could say, by the play. And Dillon Gabriel didn't look useless out there. He looked better than Flacco has, but the Vikings were still able to dial up a whole lot of pressure.
A ton of pressure. He got rid of the ball faster than Wentz did, and he still got a 40% pressure rate. It was a ton of pressure. Oh my God, that poor guy. That poor diminutive Hawaiian. I am so sorry that happened to you. Yeah, he was. I think that you described it the best way. He was functional. Maybe efficient is too strong a word. Effective, I guess not technically. They did lose with only 17 points, so effective only gets you so far. But he's certainly an upgrade over Flacco, right? He didn't turn the ball over. He tried to, but the Vikings called the timeout at the end. But he didn't turn the ball over. It didn't seem like he was at a huge risk of turning the ball over. He scrambled a little bit to gain some yards, but for the most part, he did exactly what our guest said he would do, which is just take advantage of these underneath, like just dink and dunk, get rid of the ball as quickly as you can. Don't challenge stuff too deep. I think he had one deep throw. I mean, he kind of like the chips in the ball said that the ball traveled 20.5 yards. So if you want to count that as an over 20-yard attempt, sure, that makes sense. Depends on kind of where you cut it off and how you round. But that's the deepest attempt he had of the day, right? And then he had one more attempt that was completed at 16 yards, right? And then any other attempt he had over 15 yards went incomplete. It fell to the ground. He didn't have that many. So in any throw over like 10 yards downfield, he had what he had like 11 throws downfield, right? Over 11 throws over 10 yards downfield, and 4 of them were caught. It was now some of this is like he and Isaiah Bond were on the right page. Jerry Jeudy did essentially just drop one, right? But like a lot of it's like 11 completions or 11 attempts for 60 yards. I don't know, buddy. He's getting rid of the ball super quickly. He had 2 or 3 good throws, really good throws. The touchdown at the very beginning was one of them, or the Njoku touchdown over the middle, not the very beginning, was one of them. But yeah, for the most part, he was harassed. The Vikings blitzed him at a 53% rate, as is their kind of typical approach, especially to rookie quarterbacks. He was under pressure on 40% of throws. The fact that he didn't like actually turn the ball over is astonishing to me. He didn't get sacked that many times. He mostly would just throw under pressure. In conclusion, Dillon Gabriel is a land of contrasts.
He's not the powerhouse of the cell, but he is a land of contrasts.
I found Dillon Gabriel to be very interesting in this essay.
Way to hit the landing. Way to stick the landing. I just want you to know that I'm proud. Before we go any further, I do want to take a quick moment to thank our Patreon supporters. I didn't read this because I was just blasting through so we could start. But a special thank you to Adam, John Nebel, Mark Mastel, and Don Rio. Thank you for signing up over on Patreon. Let's get into the next thing, which is just it's the bye week for the Vikings now. We should probably look at like priorities that they should have as far as like, is this something, should the Vikings make a trade? Should the Vikings just like wrap their remaining offensive linemen and bubble wrap for the next week? Like how exactly, how should the Vikings approach this bye week?
Well, make sure that Jordan Addison has a minder. You just hire someone to just tell him no to stuff. So that's priority number one, right?
He needs a handler like a bear has a handler.
Right, yeah. So that's priority number one. Number two, I don't know that they're like offensive line trades mid-season feels so incredibly rare that I don't know if I can recall any, if now that I think about it. Defensive line trades all the time, right? Quarterbacks sometimes, wide receivers, offensive line, that feels like that never happens. And I think a lot of that just has to do with like chemistry in the unit and the protections and the calls and stuff like that. So I don't know that there's any that you would target in a trade. It turns out I think the Chargers traded for a backup Texans offensive lineman, and that guy is awful. And it's like, look, that guy couldn't crack the Texans offensive line. That before the season, when everyone was presumably healthy, we all thought that one sucked the most, and not just because Ed Ingram was on it, but also, that didn't help, right? Those are the kinds of guys that get traded. The Chargers are floundering at this right now. What a strong start to the season. Again, the Chargers. So that sucks. But I don't know that there are any we have an offensive line crisis. There was a whole Twitter deal about that 2 weeks ago about the offensive line crisis in the NFL and how to solve it. And everyone just kind of realizing you can't actually do anything to fix it. So whoops. That can't be fixed. So I guess just hope that people get healthy. Donovan Jackson had a 2-week wrist surgery, which I've never heard of in my life, but he's coming back. That's great. Christian Darrisaw will presumably be rested enough to play a full game. Hopefully every game, but a full game. So that'll resolve itself. Obviously Brown and Neal can't come back. Will Fries, please. That's the bubble wrap guy. You just got to be hey, we'll drive you. How Adam Schefter is a driver? We will drive you everywhere so you don't have to distract yourself and then suddenly catch yourself in a sidewalk or something. Please stay healthy. And then you get some nano bubbles for the center, Ryan Kelly. So I don't know what to do there. Other than that, I don't know that there's a ton in terms of priorities. You'll hopefully get Andrew Van Ginkel back, which will help a lot. You'll hopefully get Blake Cashman back, which will help a lot. And maybe you'll be at a spot where Harrison Smith will be able to take more snaps. And though he can't be this rangy center fielder anymore, that's going to help a ton. His on-off splits, I imagine, I haven't looked it up, I guess. But it does seem like the team plays a lot better when I notice him on the field. Maybe there's some sort of heuristic there where it's I'm only noticing him because the team is playing well, but it feels like he matters quite a lot more than I think even a lot of the Vikings coaches thought. And they love him. So yeah, I think all of those are the Vikings might be in a spot where by week 7, they're healthier than they were in week 3, which is a pretty unusual circumstance to be in. But you'll take it, right? No one's going to be upset about that. I'm going to take a quick look at the Harrison Smith on off because that makes me so curious. So the Vikings EPA per play obviously is number 1 in the NFL because of the Isaiah Rodgers game. But I think I can also do it by success rate. So I'll take a quick look there. So right now, the Vikings have a defensive success rate of 59%. So just above league average. And then a defensive EPA per play of 1 million, which is great. We love 1 million. And then teammates all on field. I love doing this now that I can do this. When Harrison Smith is on the field, when he's not on the field, people should be asking, where's Harrison Smith? What's he doing?
Wow. We went full Poochie. From The Simpsons. I didn't think we were going to go that route today.
Oh, yeah. Their defensive success rate rockets to number 1 in the league when Harrison Smith is on the field. I knew it mattered. I knew it felt so much better when I noticed him on the field. He's so much better than Theo Jackson at all of the not coverage stuff. It's wild. Yeah, 65.7%, number 1 with a bull in the league. Unfortunately, I have to caveat that with small sample. Because he just hasn't been around for that many snaps. 66 plays, a defensive EPA of, 19.58 over. That's crazy. 19.58 divided by 66. 0.2966, which tells me he was probably on the field for one, if not both, of Isaiah Rodgers' crazy plays, which, maybe we could chalk that up to sampling bias, or we could just say, don't worry about it. That's real factual stuff. And he caused those. Well, he did cause the one, actually, now that I think about it. He actually just directly caused the one. So, yeah, he gets credit.
Yes.
So, yeah, Maybe you just get more snaps from him. Please God, that I think would be huge. Wow, that's a crazy split because it's 0.14 EPA per play all the time, and then almost twice that when he's on the field. Oh, wow, that's crazy.
All right, I have to ask you because it's an important question, and it's not even a mailbag thing. I have to ask you this. Do the Vikings, after the bye, continue on the Carson Wentz train? Or do you feed J.J. McCarthy to the Eagles?
I mean, okay, so in some ways, there is a cop-out to this because it feels like Carson Wentz may not be able to practice and McCarthy might be able to, and then you don't really have to make a decision. But let's say there's a world where Carson Wentz is healthy, which I know, bear with me. But personally, and I know that this is like, the coaches will have way more information and access to the information that they need and stuff like that. But I think that, like, you put a player on the field, there are a bunch of tertiary impacts that can have, right? We talked about like the on-field impacts of having Harrison Smith, right? But the other tertiary long-term impacts are that you put a player on the field, you'll either do something positive or negative with them long-term. Negatively, you could expose them to injury. Negatively, you could, before they've ingrained in technique, start reinforcing bad habits that they won't get out of. If they don't have a good supporting cast, their habits might be oriented around playing like hero ball, which, we saw a lot of that with like Kyler. We see kind of turtling with like Derek and David Carr both. Those are the negatives, and the positives are like you get to have more experience. You get to understand the speed of the game at a more instinctive, intuitive level. You have the kind of reps that you need in order to succeed, right? And so those are secondary effects to playing that player. But the primary goal in any game, especially if you are a competitive team, like if you're not a competitive, like who cares? If you're not a competitive team, you can be a little bit more, roll the dice and gamble kind of. So the question isn't, is this good for J.J. McCarthy? That shouldn't be the question. It's just, does this help the Vikings win this next game, right? And if we kind of remove the like revenge game factor, which Carson Wentz has had a number of games against the Eagles at this point. I mean, he played for Washington, right? So if you remove the revenge game factor from it, I would say that at a base level, you've got a higher likelihood of a high ceiling with McCarthy and a higher likelihood of a low floor with McCarthy. But I think it skews lower. And I think the thing is, a lot of people, like 2 weeks ago, when Carson Wentz was there for the ride while the rest of the Vikings beat up on the Bengals, a lot of people, I think justifiably, but I don't think it really makes sense as an argument. I'll talk about that in a second. But justifiably, we're like, well, Christian Darrisaw came back. They had all this defensive support. The offensive line is better. You can't expect to compare McCarthy in those first two games to how Wentz performed against the Bengals because, like, look at the Bengals, which I get. But then you kind of get this game against the Steelers, and obviously he loses that game, and he doesn't play outstandingly in that game for sure. And so, it kind of it makes it so you don't really have to produce excuses, right? But his EPA per play and his success rate in that Steelers game was higher than either of the two games that McCarthy had. So from a production standpoint, a meaningful production standpoint, he was better with a worse offensive line than McCarthy's had. And kind of like a worse almost everything. Like, yeah, I guess he had Addison, but like a worse almost everything else. And he was put into, some tough situations. And he outproduced even if he didn't end up with the win, right? And then you get this game, and it's the same story. Wentz has a really high EPA per play. He has a really high success rate. I think it's the highest the Vikings have put together in a non-blowout scenario, like against the Bengals. So out of the 4 games, I think this is the best quarterback performance. And on film, you can see all of these problems, right? You see that he is playing a little bit more conservatively than he needs to. You see that he's getting rid of the ball too quickly. You see that his inaccuracy is limiting the yards after catch of the receivers. You see all of that. But it is better than what McCarthy was able to put together. Like, Wentz played with 1 offensive lineman, which is less than what McCarthy played with, right? And he did it against what people are calling the league's best defense. I think, a week ago I was asked, and I was like, I don't know, they're like a top 5 defense. But either way, there's a really, really good defense. And he executed the game plan. And like, maybe the next type of excuse can be, well, McCarthy didn't have access to the type of game plan that this version of the Vikings need. Wentz did. And it's like, okay, if we were trying to determine what was like more fair to do, maybe to these individual players, it might be more fair to give McCarthy a shot with a kind of revamped game plan with all of these pieces kind of put together. But it's not about, the NFL isn't fair, and it's not about being fair. You make a decision based off of the amount of information that you have that tells you who's going to help you win more games. And McCarthy has been really poor in 7 of 8 quarters. And the one quarter that he was good was the Bears, right? And Wentz has been, against all friggin' odds, more consistent. Just a crazy sentence that, like, Carson Wentz has been more consistent. He's not been consistently good. He isn't. Like, he isn't consistently good. And a lot of these production numbers are boosted in some way by one thing or the other. But we have never had a scenario where McCarthy's numbers are boosted in some way. We've only had the negatives for McCarthy. And so I think the most likely outcome in the short term for McCarthy is more negative scenarios. Like, if this were kind of like the Vikings are 1-4 and they need to be an explosive team, their defense isn't that good, yeah, throw the bad rookie out there. He'll work it out. Maybe he'll become good during the season. That's certainly possible. We've seen this. I've mentioned this on the show a number of times now. I wrote it in my articles. I don't think McCarthy is doomed at all, for sure, right? And I think that even in season, you can see a lot of quarterbacks improve a lot after their first 2 starts. Justin Herbert won Offensive Rookie of the Year, unfairly, but Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jane Daniels, C.J. Stroud, they're all Offensive Rookie of the Year guys that didn't have great games to start, their first 2 starts. And so, like, I don't want to like knock McCarthy's capability too much. What I'm saying is, we don't know that he's good. We only know that he has been bad. Carson Wentz has been fine. And I know you want more than fine, but like, hey,
I'm keeping your cough in, by the way, because it makes it sound like you just it hurt that much.
Yeah.
To say.
Yeah, I know that you want more than fine. Indigo Girls reference. But I don't know that you'll get it switching to another quarterback. So I think there's so much unknown about McCarthy, which a lot of people say is a positive. But I'm saying all we know about McCarthy is negative. The unknowns are what ifs and potentials and if-thens and hopefully and maybe. That's all they are. With Wentz, we at least know what we're getting. And for some reason, this guy is not doing a bunch of turnover-worthy stuff. And at some point, he might. Then I think you can reopen the conversation then. I don't think that if you go with Wentz, knowing that McCarthy is healthy, I don't think that if you go with Wentz in week 7, that you can't pivot in week 11 or something like that. So I would rather see this until it screws up, which is what they did with Joshua Dobbs. And it did screw up, but you lived with it, right? I'd rather see this until it screws up more than inducing a screw up, if that makes sense.
So it's tough. But you see teams do this all the time, especially when you have a struggle at first. Then the backup comes in. he performs better than expected, and they decide, okay, well, we're gonna ride with the hot hand is the line. We're gonna ride with the hot hand here, and see where it goes. And if it doesn't, it's fine. We can go back and let McCarthy go. But it's not one that we see often in Minnesota.
It really isn't. And I do want to say, like, if it was close, I'd go with McCarthy. I do want to say this. If it was close, I'd go with McCarthy. But McCarthy is by far the worst quarterback in the NFL in EPA per play. It's not close. And if you get rid of the pick six, he's still, like, which I don't know why you get rid of it. But, like, if you got rid of it, he's still, maybe because it's, like, small samples, so that it skews the data. He's still, like, bottom 3 or something like that. Like, and Carson Wentz is, like, top 12. Like, they're not close to each other in these metrics. Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy have very similar weakness profiles, and Wentz is better at all of them right now. McCarthy will hopefully probably be better in the long run, but you don't win games now with, like, long run potential. You win games now with talent now.
What a weird year this is.
I can't believe I'm here, dude. This is so stupid.
One of the weirdest years in NFL history, and we're talking about Carson Wentz being preferred over a rookie quarterback. What a time to be alive. Well, let's go to the mailbag, and we're still going to cover some of the game stuff here. Starting with VH Cadet, who asks, question for Arif's Carson Wentz takes corner. Why wasn't Wentz benched immediately for Cam Akers after the Oliver TD? So I didn't bring it up specifically because I knew we had this question handy. I think the last time we had a positive yardage situation in a Wildcat situation was like back when Adrian Peterson threw a touchdown or something. Like it's like 2008, 2009.
So we discussed this on the Vikings Quest show. That was Chester Taylor.
Chester Taylor, apologies. It's been forever.
Yeah. Jerick McKinnon tried so hard to throw a touchdown, man. So hard. Couldn't do it. Yeah, that ruled. And I think also, like, we've been kind of annoyed with some of the trick plays. I say we. I mean, like, the larger Vikings fan base has been kind of annoyed with some of the trick plays that have just not been working out over the past couple of years. Like, they were so cool in 22 and 23, and then they just haven't been working. And so they worked. That one worked. That was awesome. He was, like, wide open too. That was fun, and they needed it, obviously. So go Cam Akers, the guy that I think they love more than like I think Cam Akers is to Kevin O'Connell what Teddy Bridgewater is to Mike Zimmer. Like those two have a special bond.
It's very possible at this point. Just, you don't end up on the team for the third time in 3 years without having that sort of thing. Or, I mean, unless you have something on Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, I mean, no, they have a special bond. It's not blackmail. It's a special bond.
Yeah. And speaking of conspiracies, DT asks, for Arif's conspiracy corner, since field goals can now be redirected by so-called invisible wires, how many times in history has this been covered up? Were there wires on the grassy knoll? How deep does this go?
Were there wires on the grassy knoll? Oh, so, like, how does this work? The wire altered the trajectory of the bullet, so that's why JFK's head did that? That's a basis of the conspiracy, right? That JFK's head did the thing weird.
Well, I mean, that and the whole, like, the magic bullet situation,
right?
Kind of deflecting it around and being, like, in pristine condition in the car. Like, there's all sorts of options here.
Right.
Pick your poison.
But it feels like the way the head reacted. We're getting awfully close to some stuff. I just realized. But, like, I feel like that was kind of the genesis for a lot of that. Either way, certainly a wire a sufficiently strong wire, maybe one that holds up a Skycam, could alter the trajectory of a bullet in such a way that it would look unusual on 1960s era film grain.
Why didn't we have a Zapruder angle of this field goal?
I've been saying we do, and the NFL has to release the Skycam footage.
Is it a coincidence it goes back into the rut? No. All right, we're gonna keep going. Let's go to Bring Ed Ingram Back, who asks, what was the difference between this week's quick game versus the first 4 games? Seemed way more intentional and creative during live viewing. Maybe I'm mistaking this with success.
So I would argue that in terms of like play design, there was actually less quick game in this game than in the previous 2 games. And there was a decent amount, I would argue, in the Bears game that wasn't turned into quick game. And Kevin O'Connell actually has talked about this with media members in the past, about quick game. Let me see if I can pull it up. Because it's like it's pretty insightful in terms of like our ability to kind of figure that out. So let's see. The ball's coming out of the third or fourth progression, same amount of time another player might spend on number 1. That's where you can start activating, because then it's truly quick game. It's not quick game if you don't throw the ball to number 1 in quick game, unless you play with proper rhythm and timing and going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. If it's not that, then it's just drop back pass with worse protection. And I think that's where, the depth of targets. In this day and age, there's a way to analyze the data of what we think we're seeing by those little trackers running around that rectangular green field. Still, there's like a method to the madness. There's also a method to negative plays too. Man, it's just so hard to read quotes out loud. Because it was on the sheet in the quick game box doesn't mean it's quick game, or just because we threw a seam ball to Justin and an empty base defense cover 2, that ball got out pretty quick. But it was an explosive. He's making sorry, that didn't help at all. He's making the argument, right, that like sometimes the ball comes out quick and that's not quick game. Sometimes the ball doesn't come out quick, and what had been called was, designed to be, 1 step, get the ball out. And when he said that's just drop back pass with worse protection, what he's saying is that the offensive linemen block with a particular depth, and they understand what the quarterback is supposed to be. So, like their jersey numbers are supposed to be a camera trained on the quarterback, basically. So their back is always to the quarterback. That's how they angle themselves. And so, I think the actual coaching tip is your butt is a camera aimed at the quarterback. It's football coaches, right? But it's also probably a better coaching tip anyway. But like you're always attempting to adjust how you block based off of where you think the quarterback is going to be, which because the quarterback is supposed to be at a particular depth on particular passing plays. And if it's a shallow depth and you're not blocking for very long, that quarterback is done for. So that's what he means by drop back with worse protection. But yeah, if you kind of try to sync up the timing of the drop with the receivers getting out into their breaks, so it could be like a 3-step drop and a hitch, or just a 3-step drop, or a 5-step drop and a hitch. You kind of like figure out what the quarterback is doing when they get to the top of their drop. If the receivers are immediately getting out of their break at the same time, or if he's hitching and then the receivers get out of their break. And that's when the ball should be coming out within the timing of the play. And so with that in mind, you take a look at it, and it's just the ball's not coming out, and the quarterback starts drifting. And then they scramble and then throw the ball away. That wasn't a designed 7-step drop. That was a designed 5-step drop or 3-step drop even. But the quarterback didn't do whatever they needed to do, or the receivers didn't get open or whatever. And so they held on to the ball too long. And so there was a fair amount of quick game in weeks 3 and 4, in addition to week 5. There's actually less quick game, I think, in week 5 and more rollouts in this game. So we had 7 or so play action rollouts. That was the most in Kevin O'Connell games since 2022. He hadn't done it that often in 2024, and he wasn't doing it that often in 2023. He did it 7 times in a game for at least 3 games in 22, and then as a percentage, it was also the fourth most as a percentage of dropbacks. So this is like a heavy rollout game for Kevin O'Connell, and that's not quick. That's slow, right? So that's a different way to protect your quarterback that might give you some explosives, but it kind of relies on the defense kind of crashing it in the run game. You can't use it all the time. We saw that when Green Bay demolished Kirk Cousins, when they finally kind of figured out to attack Cousins on a naked boot instead of Dalvin Cook. So, yeah, I think that there is a fair amount of quick game in weeks 3 and 4. It's just a lot of things were being executed, and I think, in my opinion, at least at a higher level.
Let's go to Antitech, who asks, for a Reef support group corner, should we as fans stage an intervention for Jordan Addison to try to get to the bottom of why he keeps making boneheaded off-the-field decisions? And on a more serious note, how much will his antics impact negotiations for his upcoming extension?
I'm actually super curious about that second one. George Pickens got moved, and that guy has, I would argue, much more of a problem, much more of a headache than Jordan Addison, but he's also got more talent. So I don't know. And Addison's very talented, obviously. I don't want to but George Pickens has quite a lot of inherent natural talent. So people are happy with him right now, and he got moved and he signed a reasonable deal. So I think this is a case where the Vikings might think about, at the end of his contract anyway, we'll see if he just stops doing this, but might think about moving on, because I think it's beginning to get to the point where you're like, I don't know, dude. You just missed a meeting? Just straight up missed it? Okay.
Maybe you'll have more, maybe he'll have better luck in Las Vegas. Yeah. Patrick O'Neill asks, for the Norse Code Carson Wentz appreciation corner it's a growing corner. Are there any other tight ends that have led/thrown their team to a comeback win versus the best defense in the NFL? Also, Jordan Love is 0-1 versus the Browns this year, and Carson Wentz is 1-0 against the same team. Is Wentz better than Love?
Okay, first of all, very famously, tight end led a comeback with a touchdown throw against the best defense in the league. It happened in US Bank Stadium. The play is known as the Philly Special. Trey Burton threw the ball. That super happened, man. Okay, the Patriots were not the best defense in the league that year, but it was the Vikings. But does it happen a lot? No. Does it happen more than you think? Probably. Tight ends love throwing the ball, dude.
Annoying as hell when it does. Yeah. But no, Jordan Love is still better than Wentz until proven otherwise, I suppose. Ben asks, was it my imagination or was Brandell better at center than he ever looked at guard?
I mean, he played pretty good at center, and I don't know that he ever played pretty good at guard, so yeah, I don't know how much, again, best defensive line you could possibly, so I don't want to be well, it was easy. It wasn't, but I don't know how much you can draw from one game, but sure, yeah.
Next question. Eli asks, I've come to believe that the run defense's struggles are more of a function than a problem. Flores seems to be gambling tackles for losses versus somewhat explosive runs with a mindset that a first down loss hurts the offense more than a 10 to 15 yard run helps. Is there any legitimacy to that?
Very similar, and I don't know if this was the same person who asked the question, but someone tweeted at me in response to one of my pieces. I think actually it was Matt Freese's piece about the run game. That it was intentional, that the run game is intentionally bad in order to induce teams into running. And, I think if you're not really kind of familiar with the lore of that particular phrase, it seems crazy. It seems so stupid. But Bill Belichick did this against the Buffalo Bills as a defensive coordinator of the New York Giants. That very famously, chose to remain in nickel all game so that the Bills would run the ball with their all-star running back Thurman Thomas instead of having Jim Kelly throw it, right? So, because they're like, yeah, we'd rather allow Thurman Thomas to have 100 yards than Jim Kelly have 300, right? So there is like some credence to it. And, obviously Brian Flores like knows Bill Belichick, but like, I don't think that's what's happening. I think they're legitimately upset about the run game. And whenever you see a defender get asked about the run game, they seem really ticked off. Like they're not supposed to be doing this. They're not supposed to be giving up all these yards in the run game. Also, like last year, they were really good against the run. So I don't know like why they were like, well, we should just be worse at that this year. Like I understand like you can sometimes get trade-offs here. Like you can sign a Javon Hargrave who is not going to be as great against the run, who's going to be really great against centers and pass protection or something. And that'll give you something additional that's probably worth it in the long run. That's true, but a lot of times these things don't trade off directly in ways that make it seem really, interesting or unique. I think that the Vikings would really rather not let Quinshon Judkins run over them like that. Like I think if you make contact at the line of scrimmage, you're not intentionally giving up yards. I think you just failed to tackle. Like I don't think that someone fills their gap with explosiveness and immediacy and then gives up on the tackle because the defensive coordinator was like, well, we want to have them keep doing this, right? So you give up a couple of yards. That's not what's happening. I think the run defense is not intentionally bad in any way. I think, maybe they made some trade-offs that would make it worse in the hopes of making the pass defense better, which by EPA per play, Isaiah Rodgers exception, caveat, all that, it is, right? It's the top pass defense in the NFL by a lot of metrics. But I don't think all of those are a product of like trade-offs. I think that you can continue being good against the pass and get better against the run. And I think they want to. I think that with the way Brian Flores talks about it, the way the players talk about it, they're really ticked off. So I don't think that this is like a by design thing. And obviously, like you can scheme up worse run looks, be worse against the run, and the players be ticked at themselves for it, even though you've put them in a bad position. That could be happening. I don't think that's what's happening. I think they need to get better in the run game, and I think they want to.
Next question is from Berms, who asks, does Kevin O'Connell have beef with Arif? He gave the tersest response I've ever heard him give to Arif's question about moving the pocket in the post-game presser. Are you aware that you have a mortal enemy?
I'm pretty aware of my mortal enemies. Yeah. Like Michael Kist would be so ticked off if I didn't like bring him up as one of my many mortal enemies.
Facts.
I'm usually pretty aware. I was not aware that I was on this particular hit list for Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, I was pretty surprised actually. It was pretty unusual, and I'm kind of curious that like other people picked up something like that from it. Because I was surprised by it, and then a couple of other people commented that they were surprised by it, and so like that kind of validates in my head that is a surprising thing. Like, oh yeah, okay, that was weird. Okay, great, good, I'm right, that was weird. But yeah, and like I've had a couple of people be like, well, he's ticked off about this, that, or the other thing, and so he's just giving terse answers. And it's like, I don't watch the whole presser. He's not like that for any other question. Really, and he just answered a Jordan Addison question where he was like, and he just answered a Jordan Addison question where he was like, yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail, but and he gives detail, and then he goes on and he talks about, how much he loves Addison and how much he believes in him, but at the same time, you have to, you found your team with discipline. Like he goes on and on about that. And then after my question, he goes on and on about another thing. And then he goes on and on about another thing. And so I was like, it's a very strange approach. And I don't know what to make of it, because every kind of theory that people have come up with doesn't really hold water to me, but I don't have an answer. So it's like, it's as good as any, I guess. But like, he said his brain was hurting, and it's like, well, he's saying that because he was on an international trip. He said that after a very long answer, and then he launched after that into another very long answer. So I don't think that's it. I don't know. I'm saying because it wasn't like a hyper specific like, hey, you're calling Packers All Go Special out of the Ace shotgun set. This is Madden. This is not real football. You're calling scat protection like I'm not doing anything where I'm talking about hyper specific play calls. I'm just talking about like a tendency. Like if you'd asked an offensive coordinator about play action, you'd usually get an answer. So I don't know.
It was a little odd. It was a little odd, and it's entirely possible that in Egan, and maybe this sign travels with them when they are going to away games, or even, especially when they go overseas, that do not accept questions from this man, and then there's a picture of your face.
That would be great.
It's very possible, and
Carson took 3 questions from me. He hadn't seen the sign.
He's new.
He's new.
He's new, but everybody else from the coaching staff is aware of the sign. They point to the sign often, and you were credentialed in London, so there you go. This is the only explanation that makes sense, other than like he was hangry. That works for me.
He's angry for one question in the middle of the presser.
He was hangry briefly. Jogger asks, Arif has talked about how mental elasticity goes down with age and is one reason to be skeptical of older NFL draft prospects, like Knicks. Is this something that shows up in your data? Do older quarterbacks show less improvement in their NFL career comparatively to similarly drafted younger quarterbacks?
The answer to the second question is yes, but I want to be clear that doesn't prove the supposition. That's just a theory for why that may be the case, but it is an explanation for why that second thing is true. And I'm going to be really curious about going back across that data as we've finally got like the last of the COVID red shirts, because like you've got like these 5-6 year. And we're not going to go back all the way to having as many younger draft prospects as we used to have because of the way the transfer portal is set up and the way the NIL system reduces the amount of pressure there is on players to declare, maybe in situations maybe where it wouldn't make sense for them to declare. So we're going to have an older pool of players for the foreseeable future, but not as old as it had been for the past 3-4 draft classes. So I'm really curious about how that'll all shake out. But the old models don't really apply in a scenario where you've got portal and NIL anyway. So what we regard as old or young is going to be relative to the draft classes that we're in and maybe the past one before it. But prior to any of that, the data did show that prospects who entered the NFL older performed worse. Now, again, there's so many reasons for this. One of them is that they get drafted later. And, it's not that if you get drafted later, you're worse. You're likely worse because, or it's not that getting drafted later causes you getting worse. It's the other way around, that you not being a high potential prospect is a reason that you'd fall in the draft. And we don't know if one of the reasons that a player may fall in the draft is because of age, if NFL teams are taking that into account. But one thing to keep in mind is that younger players who declare early are much more likely to be talented because you don't declare until you feel like you're better than everyone around you. And if you're that at 19 years old, you'll declare when you're 20 or 21, right? If you're not that until you're 23, then you weren't that good for the bulk of your career. And so now you're entering an NFL where you're starting at the bottom again, but these guys have been here forever. So that's like part of it, is that like people with like more talent declare early because that talent is realized earlier. So there's like a bunch of reasons. The elasticity is just like one thing to maybe keep in mind as another potential reason, right? This may be 5 to 10%. It could be 1 to 2%. It could be even more, right? Of like why, or zero even, right? Of why drafting an older prospect later matters. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I didn't actually watch the Eagles Broncos. Did Bo Nix actually play well, or did the Eagles just kind of screw the whole deal? The Broncos have like the best defense of the NFL. See, people talk about the Browns have the best defense of the I never said that. The Broncos might have the best defense in the NFL.
When it shows up, it's been kind of off and on this year, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put Bo Nix's performance in the first half anyway in the pantheons of things you need to see. But
cool.
He was remarkably efficient in the second half.
This is a very Carson Wentz against the Bengals kind of scenario.
Kind of. Next question is from Rasta, who asks, will Rasta win the Hell League? No. You're not going to win this week's matchup. You're going to be 2-3, and you'll be lower than 6th place. You are not going to win. But I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you that I am researching a new Hell League idea.
Ooh. Also, I'm trying to figure out, am I undefeated in one of the Hell Leagues?
It's very possible.
Oh my God, I am. That's so cool.
Yeah, it will not last. Only one person has gone the entire, or I say 2 people technically, have gone with 1 loss and then won it. And I did that one of the years where I lost week 1 and then I just ran the table.
Yeah, you lost week 1.
I lost week 1 by like 20 points. And then I just made a run. It was beautiful. I am currently researching an ESPN league that is only punters. Because somebody had posted that and I went, that's amazing. I have to look into this further. So I may have a punter an Oops All Punters ESPN fantasy league to show people to make. I saw that and I wanted it badly. I'm not stealing the idea. I am giving credit to whomever, like, this is not my idea, but I really want to do this. I really want to have a punters only fantasy league. Think about how quick the drafts would be.
Right. Well, that, and like you could really screw up the scoring a lot from the original punter concept, right? Because it's like, oh, touchbacks, those are -20, actually.
Yeah. It went out of bounds. Like,
right.
No.
A punt return touchdown, we're going to put that on the punter.
As it should be. He's the last line of defense. Why didn't he make the tackle? Yeah. McAfee your way over there, bud. The punters only league. It is only possible in the ESPN league. Yahoo won't touch this. Which to me means they're cowards.
Yahoo won't touch.
No, Yahoo's cowards. We have bent the Yahoo servers as much as we can in the Hell League. We may need to go a little more extreme with ESPN. Minneapolis Cinnamon Cheerios asks, I suppose this is more of a question about the show than a show question, but since you've been doing this show for 10 plus years now, are you able to reliably see a dip in streams and downloads after a loss versus a win and vice versa for a good win? That's an interesting question.
James. I never looked at these numbers. Yeah.
This is all me. Yeah. The numbers tend to stay fairly steady. The numbers go down as the season goes on. And perhaps you as a listener have had that sort of situation where, like, oh, I suppose my interest in the team kind of waned once I figured out that we weren't going to make a big run or something.
It's sustainability rant from Arif. I've heard it before.
Look, it's momentum is not real, sadly, except in the podcast world. So, but as far as the difference between losses and the bad losses, it's noticeable. We try to make it more interesting on those ones, or when we have specific news to break, we try to make it a little bit more interesting. Like, people tune in because they know that we're going to rant about it. But as far as good wins, using this season and last season as metrics, and I went over the stats earlier today when I saw this question, it ends up being fairly steady. It's not as much of a change as it's been in the past few years. People who listen to our show want to listen to it regardless, apparently. and we appreciate it.
That's a nuts decision.
I
thank you. Yeah, no, for sure.
That's. Nick Howard asks, well, we talked about the Jordan Mason question, but Nick Howard says, I've recently been diagnosed with diabetes. I don't want to pay for online diabetes food lists. We're going off the rails now, by the way. I know you guys watch a lot of cooking stuff on YouTube and the internet. What are some good channels to watch? Dr. Hassan here is ready to give all sorts of medical advice. So I'm going to let Dr. Hassan here help you figure out what's going to be best for you and your situation.
Okay, so back when a precious 2 hours ago, I don't know, a precious time amount ago, when I saw this in the show notes, I was like, oh, we'll probably get rid of this because I don't have the time because of the weird situation regarding my laptop power, which I was resolving during the show when I had informed James, hey, actually, my laptop does have a lot more power left, which, by the way, my makeshift whatever has stopped working. So,
good.
Yeah. But we'll finish.
Is that your excuse? So now we can't answer this. We have to move on.
No,
coincidentally, stopped working.
So what I'm saying is I did not do any research for this question because I was like, we just got to skip this question. But I do remember there's this YouTube short guy that I don't click off of when he shows up in my YouTube shorts. So I end up watching a lot of them because the algorithm is like, you love this guy. And it's like, well, I don't hate him. That's nice. And I guess is it the Plant Slant? Is that the name of yeah. So I don't even know if he's vegan or not. He must be with a name like that. But his stuff is like really good about controlling the amount of sugars in your diet. Again, not stuff I was like proactively seeking out, but for a while I was doing keto with my partner. And so like that was like something that I sought out. So the algorithm remembered from like 6 years ago. But yeah, this guy, like, really good stuff, honestly. Like solid information that's like backed up by like research that's pretty easy to find and verify, non-judgmental stuff, easy recipes. So it's not, I guess it's designed for vegans. I don't know, but it is oriented towards tasty, healthy food. So the Plant Slant, which I assume he does non-YouTube Shorts content, but I have not been served any of those. By the way, I didn't know his name, so while James was talking, I went over to YouTube. I went over to YouTube and I typed in Bean Guy Liam because that's like the thing I remember about him is that he loves beans and he wanted to get sponsored by like a baked beans company. And his name is Liam. So I just Googled Bean Guy Liam, and he's like 4 of the top 5 results. So Google's been getting a lot worse, but sometimes it follows through.
It's like James provided just enough time for me to like, oh, I should research this real quick. Also, I should come up with an excuse as to why. Yes, perfect. All this works out. Let's go to the mean streets of Minneapolis. The mean streets of Indianapolis.
Oh,
for James's assault corner, oh no, is getting arrested after being stabbed by an elderly man in self-defense. The butt fumble of getting stabbed.
It is, but now it's something worse because so he was initially charged with like 5 misdemeanors. One of those, or all of them, have been upgraded to a felony. So assaulting a guy, then getting stabbed in the chest so hard you had to be hospitalized, which, mind you don't have to be stabbed very hard in the chest to be hospitalized, but like, work with me. And then getting arrested in the hospital for a felony, that's something worse than a butt fumble. And man, I do not recommend that you seek it out, but there's been at least one leaked photo of the person that Mark Sanchez allegedly initiated an assault against. And I was surprised it didn't start as a felony. That looks so bad. My God. So yeah, it was really funny because I think Justice was like, when Justice learned that it was like a retaliatory stabbing and not like Mark Sanchez got jumped, like Skylar Thompson in Dublin. um, Justice tweeted out, like, you all were trying to tell me about the mean streets of Indianapolis, man. It wasn't like that at all. Yeah, dude. If any of that is true, first, Mark Sanchez, seek help. Clearly, you were, because like the story is like he's doing like wins, like he asked this guy to move. This guy's doing his job, and then he starts to like he threatens the guy. The guy's like, "Don't threaten me, please." And then he starts doing wind sprints in anticipation.
The wind sprints is the most wild
fighting
part.
This
of
guy,
that.
yeah.
Like you get stabbed, fine, but you got stabbed after doing wind sprints.
Yeah, that's nuts, dude. So clearly, I mean, I can't say clearly, but it seems as if there's a good chance that substances, alcohol or not, I don't know, could be involved. And maybe Mark Sanchez, you've got a problem, and man, do I hope you fix that problem. But also, like, you're going to super jail, man. That was crazy.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do what Mark Sanchez does. Let's go to Francis Ford Copium, who asks, for a Reef's frequent flyer corner, for long flights such as overseas, what's your go-to setup? Aisle or window, in-flight movie, book or laptop, your own headphones or theirs, chicken or fish? This is almost getting stalkerish.
Yeah, okay. I didn't think about that until you said that. That's okay. I'll answer that as if that never happened. I strongly prefer window over aisle. I will pay extra for window, which right now is not an option. I assume at some point they will find another way to extract a couple more dollars by making window seats more expensive. Right now, it's just about leg room and priority seating and obviously the exit row and stuff like that. But yeah, for long haul flights, there is a reasonable chance I will pay to sit in an exit row to get the extra leg room, which, like, you know, I'm 7 feet tall. But for somebody who, I don't know, is like 5'4" or something like that, the extra leg room still rocks. It still kicks ass, actually. Again, I'm not saying from experience, but it's super worth it even if you're 5'4". But also, like, yeah, window all the time. I saw this YouTube short that was like, actually, the secret hack is the aisle seat. And I didn't believe it, and I watched it, and I super didn't believe it. And then on the way to London from Dublin, I had an aisle seat. And now I definitely don't believe it. That sucked. I hate the aisle seat so much, dude. I guess if I had to choose between chicken or fish, usually chicken. But if I'm on like... if I'm flying like an Asian airline, like Cathay Pacific or something like that, I'll probably do the fish. That sounds pretty tasty. India Air maybe, but usually I'll probably do the chicken. I don't. My laptop is so big. I don't usually take it out. Occasionally I will, especially if I have work to do. But very often I'll just use my phone for that. And that is like over the past 3 years what a lot of my flight time entertainment is. It's just my phone plugged into my portable battery. But I do have like a Kindle Paperwhite that I want to use more often that I brought with me. So I do that instead of like physical books because it's a hassle to carry physical books, but I used to do that a lot. But yeah, did I miss any of the questions there?
Nope, I think you got it. So what you're trying to say is your Crunchyroll account is on your phone then. I
don't have a Crunchyroll account. You can't put.
Sorry, your roommate's account is accessible on your phone. Got it.
I don't have Crunchyroll.
You're not paying for it. He is. Got it. Kyle Segal asks, thanks to Arif suggesting I solve my problems via the power of deceit. I feel like Don from Ohio got something like that from you once. I've forged an alliance between the townsfolk and my ragtag band of outlaws. But doing so has drawn the attention of the state government and the Florida National Guard.
Okay.
Now that we've FA'd, how do we avoid FOing?
I barely remember my suggestion in this live.
This is important for Kyle. Kyle needs this. Like I think the Christmas episode this year is just going to be a compilation of Kyle questions.
Yeah, I don't. I'm losing track of the narrative, but I was kind of under the impression that that civil order had already collapsed. But now that I think about it, it was very anticipatory that civil order would collapse, and so you have preemptively formed communes. Although commune sounds so much nicer than whatever Kyle landed in, which I guess Florida, so that makes sense.
I'm enjoying the idea that this is all forcing you to remember what you said on a podcast.
Alligator Alcatraz was involved, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm remembering way more than I usually do in a podcast, so that's a credit to Kyle. What is happening? Okay. Drawing the attention of the state government and the Florida National Guard, which that's technically also the state government, but I get what you're saying. How do we avoid? Okay, so first of all, I would never on a recorded podcast recommend engaging in guerrilla tactics or guerrilla warfare, especially against a standing legitimate government. Do not do that. But there's some really cool documentaries that I would suggest you look up. That would be such fun to watch, I think.
If you were interested in such things.
Right, if you're a history buff, right? Which Kyle, I know you are. But other than that, I would say probably, is it the Everglades that crosses over into Georgia, or is it the Okefenokee? One of these swamps. You're a Floridian. You'll figure it out, Kyle. Live in the swamp that is in that border area, I think. And you can just kind of shuttle back and forth between the jurisdictions. And nobody wants to go in there anyway. It's a swamp, so you'll be fine. We're good. That's no way is that going to lead to a second complication and another question, right? I think we've solved the case.
Yep, you're now a swamp person, and you should accept that. Alex asks, will the Vikings win their Super Bowl this year by beating the Packers in one of their two matchups? If not, can they still snag a linear Super Bowl trophy from the three floating around the league? Current trophies are held by 3/8 of which is, according to the math, 3/8 of a trophy for Jacksonville Jaguars, half a trophy for the New Orleans Saints, and half a trophy for the Denver Broncos.
Okay, so for people unfamiliar with the linear Super Bowl trophy,
I love this. I love that this is one of our bets still.
So I think Justice was real mad at one, which I know, what a shock that Justice would be mad, but was real mad. We even
printed in the newspaper that he was mad. It was crazy.
Yeah, he's real mad, and he said, "Congrats on your Super Bowl when the Vikings beat the Packers." And we really loved this concept that the Vikings could win a Super Bowl just by beating the Packers, but not the other way around, and like an asymmetric trophy, kind of like asymmetric warfare. But I'm not going to get into that. We already talked about that. But you can't, the Packers can't do that, right? So it's only the Vikings. And so at the end of the year, and so whoever has the Super Bowl loses it whenever they're defeated. Thus, linear Super Bowl, which means there are teams that will win their final game of the season and not make the playoffs, and potentially ended the season without a playoff, but with the linear Super Bowl trophy. But the thing about these linear Super Bowl trophies is that they degrade. They have a half-life, right? And I believe every year you hold on to it. Is that right? It gets cut in half.
As you lose the trophy as the season goes on.
Oh, okay. So it degrades over the course of a season. Okay, great. The lore is so deep. We need a wiki. But also, the thing with the Vikings, they play the Packers twice, so they get two opportunities for a Super Bowl. So they can always be floating around. I do think the Vikings will win Super Bowl this year. I don't think the world of Jordan Love or anything like that. And I do think probably, I think it's a good. I can't believe the Saints just took it from the Giants, right? That's crazy. Or no, who did the Saints just take it from? They took it from someone. That was crazy. I do think that whoever the Saints lose to could potentially be on the Vikings schedule. So that's got to be the easiest. Yeah, it was the Giants. That's got to be the easiest opportunity to grab one, is to grab the half Saints Super Bowl trophy.
Finally, we have one final question, and I'm asking everyone to put the kids to bed. This one's a little bit different than the normal Norse code questions.
Okay.
If you're ready for if you're good with the episode, we appreciate it. There's one more question that has come up, and I never do this, but I am going to ask a question from Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat about this particular topic.
Okay.
Question is: was Taylor Swift hornier singing about Travis Kelce's manhood in the song on her new album, or as McCavity the Mystery Cat in the movie Cats?
Oh my God, that's so up this person's question asking alley. Wow.
A lot of ink has been spilled over this album, and of course because it involves Travis Kelce.
Okay, so I don't want Swifties to kind of.
I don't think you have to worry about that with our audience, but maybe.
Look, you give someone clips it, they send it around. Who's to say, right?
Yeah.
So as a preface, I want to say that being horny is not bad. That seems to be one of the premises of this album, actually. That you could just embrace that is a feeling that you have. 2, it is so difficult to beat whatever the heck is going on in Cats. Especially with her.
It's such a bizarre fever dream that makes mostly no sense.
Yeah, I don't super understand the performance, nor do I seek to.
No, he seeks to. Please write in to Arif.
No, don't worry about it. So I'll say that is a really high bar, but it is just a song. Because what's the Wood, right? That's the name of the song.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know. There's this TikTok trend of this TikTok song that got this Brazilian song that got popular on TikTok, and a lot of people don't speak Portuguese, right? And so they're just vibing to it, and then they play it to their friend who speaks Portuguese, and the song is the nastiest, filthiest, whatever, and so they get shocked. They're like, "What in the world's going on?" And I feel like it's that, but with, again, I don't want to invite a particular type of wrath. It's that, but with maybe perhaps more tonally consistent language with the type of atmosphere she wants to produce, right? She has consistently talked about embracing cringe, and she super did that here when she talked about the ways that Travis Kelce arouses her. Those are lyrics for sure. They super are lyrics, and they're super horny. And the thing about that is that they come from the heart. You know how genuine they are, because no one would write that down without meaning it.
Not about Travis Kelce, no.
Not about Travis Kelce.
But instead, yeah, I don't want to tell people to seek out watching a performance.
If you're curious, you understand how to answer your curiosities with this one, but that is not something that we will recommend that you do.
No. Massive brain injury before this. We've mentioned it before, but the guy who took acid or took mushrooms rather, and then went to go see Cats and had to leave because he's like, I can't do this. This movie is too much. The best thing about that whole movie is the fact that somebody had to go in. There's apparently an edit that, cats like to show you their rear ends often.
And they removed all of the kind of anatomically correct. Yeah. There is an edit going around that restores them.
God, really, this is the one thing AI should be used for. Is things like this. So there was a real bad trend this weekend of, I think, OpenAI videos going on of people who are dead and clearly could not consent to being a part of these trending videos. And there were some truly upsetting ones. No, this is not what AI should be used for. AI should be used for restoring the butts on the cats.
To restore the butts on the cats, yeah.
That's where we're at. That's actually an official stance of the podcast now. Fantastic. Arif, that is going to be the end of this episode of Norse Code. What do you have to plug?
So I've got a piece about the Browns and Brownie the elf and its tie to English folklore, because the Browns have that brownie kind of as their mascot, and they're in England where that creature emerged from. So in folklore. So I wrote a piece about that. It also attaches itself to the game. It also connects to a little bit of Vikings folklore as well. I don't know. Like, one of the appeals of these international games is to kind of steep myself into the history of wherever I'm going in ways that are kind of specific to either the location itself or the teams that are playing. And I feel like that's at this point my brand. And I had a ton of fun learning about little fey creatures that alter field goal kicks.
Yeah, and are tangentially related to wires that run across stadiums and hold up cameras.
Good stuff. And interfere with grassy knolls.
Exactly. Wow. Nice callback. That is me, the end of this episode of Norse Code. We will be back soon after the bye. So for Arif, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember that the horrors persist. And so does Carson Wentz in the fourth quarter when leading a comeback. What a time to be alive. We will see you soon. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog, at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
Hey, all things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.